Commander clicked his mandibles in amusement as he watched the human demonstration on the holographic display. The primitive bipeds stood in neat rows, pointing their crude projectile weapons at distant targets. The sound of their firearms echoed across the training ground like primitive thunder. "Look at them," chittered to his aide, Sub-Commander OK. "They cannot even hit a stationary target from 50 of their meters. How did these creatures ever leave there?" The Galactic Council had been debating humanity's application for membership for 3 standard cycles now. Most species agreed that humans were too violent and imprecise to join civilized society. Their weapons were loud, messy, and apparently ineffective. Every other species had moved beyond such crude tools centuries ago. OK's 4 eyes focused on the display. "Sir, our intelligence reports suggest they have some success in their conflicts. Perhaps there is more to observe." "Success?" His laugh was like grinding metal. "Watch this pathetic display. Their projectiles spray everywhere except where they aim. No wonder they require such massive quantities of ammunition for simple tasks." The human soldiers on the screen continued their training exercise. Some shots hit the targets, others went wide. To the observers, it looked completely random. Their own plasma weapons could hit a specific molecule at 1,000 meters. These humans seemed to spray and pray. Captain Sarah of the Terran Defense Force stood behind her troops, watching their performance with a critical eye. She knew the alien observers were recording everything. The humans had been invited to demonstrate their military capabilities as part of the membership evaluation process. "Steady breathing, soldiers," called out. "Remember your fundamentals." Private adjusted his grip on the rifle. The weapon felt familiar in his hands, like an extension of his body. He had been shooting since he was 12 years old, learned from his grandfather who had served in 3 different wars. The alien targets were simple enough, but something felt off about the whole demonstration. "Ma'am," said quietly, "are we supposed to be missing this much?" His expression never changed, but her voice carried a subtle undertone. "Follow your orders, Private. Show them exactly what they expect to see." The command ship orbited Earth at a safe distance. Had seen enough. These humans were clearly no threat to anyone but themselves. Their weapons were primitive, their accuracy was terrible, and their tactics seemed based entirely on overwhelming firepower rather than precision. "File the report, OK?" he ordered. "Recommend rejection of their application. Add a note that we should monitor them for self-extinction within the next few decades. Any species this incompetent with weapons will likely eliminate itself soon enough." OK hesitated. "Sir, should we not observe their actual combat operations? These appear to be training exercises." "Training?" His antenna twitched with disdain. "If this is how they train, imagine how terrible they must be in real combat. No, OK. Mark my words, these humans will never pose a threat to anyone with real military capabilities." Down on Earth dismissed her soldiers after the demonstration. As they walked back to the barracks, caught up with her. "Ma'am, why did you want us to shoot like rookies? Half my squad could put every round through the same hole at that distance." Glanced around to make sure they were alone. "Because sometimes it's better to be underestimated. The galaxy is full of species with superior technology. Let them think we're incompetent with weapons." "But why?" "Because when someone thinks you can't shoot, they get careless. They come closer than they should. They don't take proper cover. They assume they're safe at distances where they're actually well within our effective range." Smile was cold. "Every human child learns to hunt before they learn advanced mathematics. Every human teenager knows the difference between a gun that jams and one that will fire when needed. We've been at war with each other for thousands of years. We know weapons in ways these aliens never will." 3 months later, the fleet received new orders. The border colony of Prime had gone silent. Long-range sensors detected unknown vessels in the system. The Galactic Council suspected pirate activity. Commanded the investigation fleet, 3 heavy cruisers with the latest plasma weaponry and shields. As they approached Prime, they found something unexpected. Human ships orbited the planet. Small, ugly vessels that looked like they had been built in someone's garage. "Humans," OK's voice carried surprise. "What are they doing here? This system is nowhere near their space." "Probably lost," replied. "Hail them and tell them to leave. We'll escort them back to their territory after we investigate the colony." The response came back in heavily accented galactic standard. "This is Captain Martinez of the Terran vessel Defiant. We're here on a rescue mission. The colonists requested our help when pirates attacked. His mandibles clicked in irritation. Stand down, human vessel. We are here to handle this situation. Your primitive weapons are not required. With respect, Commander, we've already handled it. What do you mean, handled it? The pirates are gone. Colony is secure. We were just finishing cleanup when you arrived. Impossible. Sensors swept the system and found debris scattered across several orbital tracks. The energy signatures suggested a significant battle had taken place, but these humans couldn't possibly have defeated a pirate fleet. Human vessel, prepare to be boarded for inspection. We need to verify your claims. The boarding party found something that didn't match their expectations at all. The human ship was cramped and basic, but every surface showed signs of careful maintenance. The weapons were indeed projectile-based, but they were precision instruments, not the crude tools they had observed during the demonstration. Captain Martinez was a weathered woman with scars on her hands and a steady gaze. She led them to the tactical display where the recent battle was recorded. 3 pirate vessels, she explained. Faster than us, better shields, more firepower, standard rating fleet configuration. Then how did you defeat them? OK asked. Martinez smiled. Same way humans always win fights against superior opponents. We cheated. The tactical display showed the human vessels approaching the pirates. Instead of engaging directly, they had used the asteroid field to mask their approach. When the pirates finally detected them, the humans were already inside the enemy formation. Your weapons cannot penetrate military-grade shielding, protested. You're right, Martinez agreed, but we don't shoot at the shields. The recording showed human projectiles threading impossibly precise paths through space. Instead of hammering uselessly against energy barriers, they struck external sensors, weapon mounts, engine exhausts, and communication arrays. The pirates found themselves blind, deaf, and unable to maneuver within minutes. This is impossible, muttered. Your species cannot shoot accurately. Martinez exchanged glances with her weapons officer, a young man who looked barely old enough to shave. Here put 6 rounds through a 2-centimeter gap in their shield grid from 8 kilometers away, while we were maneuvering in 3 dimensions. Shrugged, pirates always use the same shield configurations. Once you know the pattern, you just wait for the gap to rotate into position and lead the target properly. But we observed your training, OK protested. Your soldiers could barely hit stationary targets. Oh, that, Martinez laughed. Yeah, command told us you were watching. They wanted us to look incompetent. Worked pretty well, apparently. The truth began to dawn on. Every human on the bridge was armed with a sidearm. Not ceremonial weapons like most species carried, but functional tools that showed signs of regular use and maintenance. These people lived with weapons the way his people lived with computers. How long have your people been using projectile weapons? He asked quietly. Since before we discovered fire, Martinez replied. First rocks, then spears, then arrows, then bullets. Humans have been throwing things at targets for over 1,000,000 years, Commander. We don't think about aiming, we just do it. As the implications sank in, realized the Galactic Council had made a serious miscalculation. These humans hadn't demonstrated incompetence. They had demonstrated deception. And if they could lie so convincingly about something so fundamental, what other capabilities were they hiding? The galaxy suddenly seemed like a much more dangerous place. News of the Prime incident spread through Galactic Council channels like wildfire. What had started as a simple pirate cleanup had turned into something much more significant. Commander's report raised questions that made several species very uncomfortable. Admiral of the Defense Fleet called an emergency session. They prided themselves on military precision. Their energy weapons could carve through asteroids with surgical accuracy. The idea that primitive kinetic weapons might actually be effective was deeply troubling. Surely this is an exaggeration, insisted Counselor, representing the aquatic hydrozoan collective. Projectile weapons are crude relics. Any civilized species abandons them within decades of developing energy technology. His blue-scaled face remained impassive. The evidence suggests otherwise. 3 pirate vessels, all equipped with standard military shields and weapons, disabled by projectile fire. The humans claim they targeted vulnerable points that energy weapons typically ignore. Impossible, scoffed General of the Saurian Empire. Military shields are designed to deflect all incoming fire. There are no vulnerable points. Actually, a quiet voice interrupted from the back of the chamber. There are 17 standard vulnerabilities in military shield configurations. All heads turned toward the speaker. Doctor was a scientist who specialized in defensive technologies. She rarely spoke during military briefings, preferring to observe and analyze. Explain, ordered. Doctor activated a holographic display showing a typical shield grid. Energy weapons create broad-spectrum impacts. They strike shielding directly and are deflected or absorbed. But projectile weapons can thread through momentary gaps in the grid matrix. The gaps are microscopic and last only milliseconds, but they exist. Even if such gaps exist, rumbled, no species could possibly target them with any reliability. The calculations alone would require massive computers. Unless, Doctor continued, you don't calculate at all. Humans appear to use what they call instinctive targeting. Their brains process trajectory information unconsciously, the same way our brains process breathing or walking. The chamber fell silent. The implications were staggering. Every species in the Galactic Council had developed advanced targeting computers because their natural ability to track moving objects was limited. Humans apparently didn't need computers for something that came as naturally as breathing. On Earth, General Hayes read the intercepted Galactic Council transmissions with grim satisfaction. The spy satellites had been worth every credit spent on them. Knowing what the aliens thought about human capabilities was crucial for long-term survival. They're starting to understand, she told Colonel, her chief of staff. Question is, what do we do about it? Pulled up tactical displays showing human fleet positions throughout the solar system. Ships that looked like cargo haulers and mining vessels, but were actually heavily armed and ready for combat. Orders from the President are clear, ma'am. Continue the deception as long as possible. Make them think we're more primitive than we actually are. And when they figure out the truth, then we show them just how good humans actually are at war. Hayes nodded. Humanity had been preparing for first contact for decades. The governments had always assumed aliens would be either friendly or hostile. They had prepared for both possibilities. What they hadn't expected was contempt. Being dismissed as primitive had actually worked in humanity's favor. While the aliens debated whether to let humans join their club, human intelligence services had been busy. Every major alien species had been thoroughly studied. Their military capabilities, their technologies, their weaknesses, all and analyzed. The aliens might have better technology, but humans had better intelligence. 3 days after the Galactic Council session, the Hydrozoan military decided to conduct their own test. If humans were truly dangerous with primitive weapons, it would be better to discover this in a controlled environment rather than during an actual conflict. Commander commanded the heavy cruiser Tidal Force, one of the most advanced vessels in the Hydrozoan fleet. Their mission was simple: approach human space, conduct defensive maneuvers near their outer colonies, and observe human responses. The target was New Texas, a frontier colony world that barely showed up on galactic charts. Long-range scans showed typical human development patterns: scattered settlements, basic industrial facilities, and what appeared to be minimal defensive installations. Deploy shields and maintain standard patrol formation, ordered as they dropped out of hyperspace. Let the humans know we're here, but keep our intentions ambiguous. The tidal force was magnificent, a kilometer-long vessel shaped like a flowing wave. Its bioluminescent hull patterns pulsed with stored energy. Weapon ports along its flanks could unleash devastating plasma torrents. Against most opponents, its mere presence would be enough to end any conflict. The human response was almost immediate. 3 small vessels rose from the planet's surface, accelerating on chemical rockets that left bright trails across the sky. They looked like toys compared to the alien warship. Incoming transmission, reported Communications Officer Ah. Put it through. The human who appeared on screen was middle-aged, with gray hair and the kind of steady expression that came from years of dealing with problems. This is Sheriff Martinez of New Texas Planetary Defense. You're in violation of our territorial space. State your business or withdraw immediately. Almost laughed. Sheriff, this backward world was defended by law enforcement officers. This is Commander of the Hydrazoan Defense Fleet. We are conducting routine patrols. Your territorial claims are not recognized by the Galactic Council. Don't care much about galactic politics, Commander. Care about people trying to intimidate my colonists. You've got 2 minutes to change course, or we'll change it for you. With 3 small vessels, against a heavy cruiser, couldn't hide his amusement. Sheriff, I suggest you reconsider. We have no desire to harm your people, but we will defend ourselves if attacked. Fair enough, Martinez out. The transmission ended, turned to his tactical officer. Maintain course and speed. Let's see what these humans actually do. The 3 human vessels spread out in a triangular formation, approaching from different vectors. Their movement patterns were erratic, almost random. It looked like amateur pilots trying to appear threatening. Sir, the tactical officer reported, human vessels are within weapons range. They're not powering up any energy weapons, detecting minimal electromagnetic signatures. Probably trying to get close enough for their projectile weapons to be effective, mused. Standard defensive procedures. Don't let them get within 10 kilometers. But the human ships kept coming. When they reached 5 kilometers, expected them to open fire. Instead, they split up again, moving in complex 3-dimensional patterns that seemed to serve no tactical purpose. What are they doing? Ott asked. Before anyone could answer, the tidal force shuddered, not from weapons fire, but from some kind of impact, then another, and another. Report, snapped. Multiple kinetic impacts along the hull, the tactical officer said, confusion clear in his voice. No energy weapon signatures detected. Projectiles are too small to register on our sensors until impact. Impossible. They're still over 3 kilometers away. Projectile weapons are ineffective at that range. Another series of impacts. This time, several sensor arrays went offline. Sir, they're not shooting at our hull, the tactical officer realized. They're targeting our external equipment. Sensors, communication arrays, weapon targeting systems, everything outside our primary armor. Watched in growing horror as his ship was systematically blinded. The humans weren't trying to destroy the tidal force. They were performing surgery on it, removing its ability to fight back one component at a time. Return fire, he ordered. Sir, targeting systems are offline. We have no lock on the human vessels. Then fire manually, spray the area. Plasma bolts erupted from the tidal force's remaining functional weapons. The energy beams lit up space like artificial lightning. But the human ships danced between them, their movements now revealing a precision that makes blood run cold. They weren't amateur pilots. They were predators, and they had been toying with him. More impacts. The main communication array exploded in a shower of sparks and metal fragments. The weapon's targeting computer went next, followed by the navigation sensors. Sir, the tactical officer's voice was barely a whisper. They've disabled 70% of our external systems. We're effectively blind and defenseless. The human ship stopped firing. They hung in space around the crippled Hydrazoan cruiser like sharks circling wounded prey. Sheriff Martinez's voice crackled through the emergency communication channel. Commander, this is your 2-minute warning. You've got exactly that long to power down your remaining weapons and begin withdrawal from our space. This is impossible, muttered. How can primitive weapons be so precise? Because they're not primitive, Commander. You've been making the same mistake everyone else makes about humans. You assume that because our technology looks simple, we don't know how to use it. Every one of my pilots has been shooting since they were old enough to hold a rifle. They've been flying since they were teenagers. They've been hunting things that shoot back since they joined the service. Martinez paused, letting that sink in. Your ship is beautiful, Commander. Impressive. Probably cost more than my entire planet's annual budget. But you know what it doesn't have? It doesn't have 3 generations of people who grew up learning to hit moving targets in 3-dimensional space while under fire. Looked around his bridge at crew members who had trained on simulators and holographic ranges. None of them had ever fired a shot in anger. Most had never even seen actual combat. The humans, he was beginning to realize, had been practicing war their entire lives. We're withdrawing, he said quietly. Good choice, Commander. Have a safe trip home. As the tidal force limped away from New Texas, composed his report to Hydrazoan Command. It would not be a popular document. The implications were too disturbing. Humans didn't just use primitive weapons. They had perfected primitive weapons to a degree that made advanced technology irrelevant. And if they could do that with simple projectile weapons, what other surprises might they be hiding? The galaxy was about to find out. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened within hours of receiving Commander's report. Representatives from dozens of species filled the massive chamber, their conversations creating a din of clicks, whistles, and harmonic tones that the universal translators struggled to process. High Chancellor called for order with 3 sharp strikes of his ceremonial staff. The ancient Etherian's translucent form flickered with agitation. "We are here to discuss the human situation. Recent events suggest our initial assessment may have been incomplete." Incomplete? General's massive frame dominated his speaking platform. "The humans humiliated one of our most advanced cruisers with 3 primitive fighters. This goes beyond incomplete. This is a complete intelligence failure." Admiral stood to address the assembly. "I've reviewed the tactical data from both Prime and New Texas. The pattern is consistent. Humans don't engage in direct confrontation with superior technology. Instead, they exploit weaknesses we didn't know existed." Doctor activated a 3-dimensional display showing the engagement at New Texas. Analysis of the projectile trajectories reveals something unprecedented. The humans calculated firing solutions for moving targets at ranges exceeding 3 kilometers, without computers. They did this instinctively while performing evasive maneuvers under combat stress. "What are you suggesting?" asked Counselor. "I'm suggesting that humans may be the most naturally gifted marksmen in known space. Their entire species evolved as persistence hunters. They don't just aim at where a target is, they aim at where it will be, and they do this automatically." The chamber erupted in concerned chatter. Counselor OK of the Confederation raised his arm for attention. "Even if humans possess unusual accuracy with kinetic weapons, they remain a primitive species. They have no shields, no energy weapons, no faster-than-light communication. How dangerous can they actually be?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. High Chancellor N was about to respond when an aide whispered urgently in his ear. The Chancellor's form flickered more rapidly, betraying extreme agitation. "It appears we are about to receive a practical demonstration," he announced. "A human delegation has just entered the outer system. They are requesting permission to address the Council." "Impossible," General rumbled. "Humans don't have faster-than-light travel. The nearest human colony is dozens of light years away." "Nevertheless, they are here." The delegation consisted of 3 vessels that looked like nothing the Galactic Council had ever seen. They weren't sleek like ships or organic like hydrozoan designs. They were angular, utilitarian, and covered with what appeared to be additional equipment bolted on as afterthoughts. The lead ship was designated as the UES Diplomacy. The name seemed inappropriate for something that bristled with weapon mounts and sensor arrays. Captain commanded the Diplomacy from a bridge that would have seemed cramped to most alien species. Every surface served a purpose. There were no decorative elements, no comfortable seating, no wasted space. It was a warship pretending to be a diplomatic vessel. "Council Station, this is Captain requesting permission to dock and address the assembly." The response came after several minutes of deliberation. "Permission granted, Captain. Please dock at Bay 7 and prepare for security screening." Smiled grimly. "Understood. Fair warning, though, our security protocols require armed escorts for diplomatic personnel, non-negotiable." "That will not be necessary, Captain. Council Station is completely secure." "I'm sure it is, but humans don't take chances with their diplomats. We'll be bringing our own security team." The Galactic Council's security forces had dealt with diplomatic escorts before. Most species brought 1 or 2 ceremonial guards armed with ornate weapons that were more symbolic than functional. They were unprepared for what emerged from the human shuttle. 6 soldiers in full combat armor stepped out in perfect formation. Their movements were precise and coordinated. Each carried a rifle that looked like it could punch holes through spaceship bulkheads. More concerning were the additional weapons visible on their gear. Sidearms, knives, and equipment that the scanning systems couldn't identify. Leading them was Sergeant Major, the same man who had demonstrated poor marksmanship during the original training exercise months ago. His expression was professional but alert, constantly scanning for threats that couldn't possibly exist on the most secure station in the galaxy. Behind the soldiers came the diplomatic party. Ambassador Sarah walked with the confident stride of someone accustomed to dangerous environments. Her aide, Dr. James, carried a briefcase that contained humanity's formal proposal for council membership. "Welcome to Council Station," greeted Protocol Officer N, a tall being whose role was to manage diplomatic procedures. "If you would please submit to our security screening." "Of course," replied. "Though I should mention that our equipment includes items your scanners might not recognize. Military technology often looks different from one species to another." The security screening took longer than usual. The human weapons were unlike anything in the Galactic Council's databases. They operated on principles that seemed almost primitive, yet the construction quality was extraordinary. Every component was precision manufactured to tolerances that exceeded most energy weapons. More puzzling were the additional items the humans carried. Small electronic devices, chemical compounds, and tools that served no obvious diplomatic purpose. "Ambassador," In asked politely, "might I inquire about the purpose of these additional items?" Glanced at Doctor, who consulted his tablet. "Standard diplomatic equipment, Officer N. Communication devices, emergency medical supplies, translation aids, and basic survival gear." "Survival gear on Council Station. Humans have learned not to depend entirely on other people's life support systems," explained. "We prefer redundancy." What she didn't mention was that the survival gear included enough explosives to level several decks of the station, communication equipment that could hack into most known computer systems, and medical supplies that doubled as chemical weapons. Humanity had come to negotiate, but they were prepared for war. The formal address to the Galactic Council began with traditional ceremonies. Each species had specific protocols for recognizing new speakers. The process took nearly an hour, during which observed the assembled representatives with a tactician's eye. The Galactic Council chamber was designed to be impressive. Soaring architecture, advanced holographic displays, and seating arrangements that emphasized the power and unity of the assembled civilizations. 2. It looked like a target-rich environment with inadequate security coverage. When she was finally permitted to speak, activated a holographic display that showed star charts of human space. "Honorable representatives," she began, "humanity comes before you today not as supplicants requesting admission to your organization, but as equals proposing a mutually beneficial alliance." The word equals caused a stir throughout the chamber. General's laugh was like grinding stone. "Equals, your species has barely mastered interplanetary flight." Smiled, "General, may I ask when your species last engaged in active warfare?" "The Saurian Empire has been at peace for over 2 centuries. We consider this a mark of our civilization's advancement." 200 years of peace," mused. "How wonderful. Humanity has been at war for most of our recorded history. We've been fighting each other, our environment, and everything else that threatened our survival for over 10,000 years. She changed the display to show human military installations. "While you've been enjoying peace, we've been perfecting war. Not because we wanted to, but because we had to. Ours has multiple competing predator species. Our weather systems regularly produce natural disasters that would devastate most civilizations. Our societies have been forged in conflict." Admiral leaned forward. "What are you suggesting, Ambassador?" "I'm suggesting that the galaxy is not as peaceful as you believe. There are threats beyond your borders that your long period of peace has left you unprepared to face. Threats that humanity has been monitoring and preparing to counter." The display changed again, showing long-range sensor data from the galactic rim. Dark shapes moved between the stars, too distant for detailed scanning but clearly artificial in origin. "Unknown vessels have been detected at the edge of our sensor range," continued. "They don't match any known Galactic Council ship designs. They appear to be studying our civilizations from a distance." High Chancellor N's form flickered rapidly. "Why have you not shared this information before now?" "Because until recently, you considered us too primitive to take seriously. Would you have believed warnings from a species you thought couldn't shoot straight?" Doctor stepped forward and activated another display. "Our analysis suggests these unknown vessels are scouts for a larger force. Based on their movement patterns and energy signatures, we estimate a full invasion fleet will arrive within the next 2 standard years. Invasion? Counselor Sequatic form rippled with concern. That's impossible. The galaxy has been at peace for centuries. The galaxy you know has been at peace, corrected. But the universe is vast, and not everyone believes in peaceful coexistence. Humanity has been preparing for this possibility since we first detected signs of interstellar civilization. She gestured to Sergeant Major, who stepped forward and placed a small device on the council podium. The device projected a 3-dimensional map of human space, showing defensive installations, hidden fleet positions, and weapon emplacements that hadn't appeared on any previous scans. "This is what humanity actually looks like," announced. "Not a scattering of primitive colonies, but a carefully designed defensive network. Every human settlement is a fortress. Every human ship is a weapon. Every human citizen is a soldier." The assembled representatives stared at the display in growing shock. The humans hadn't been struggling to colonize space. They had been building the galaxy's most comprehensive military network. "You've been deceiving us," General accused. "We've been protecting ourselves," replied. "Your species abandoned military development in favor of peaceful advancement. Admirable, but it left you vulnerable. When the invasion comes, you'll need allies who remember how to fight." High Chancellor was silent for long moments. Finally, he spoke. "What do you propose, Ambassador?" "Full military alliance. Humanity provides strategic planning, tactical expertise, and combat forces. The Galactic Council provides advanced technology, manufacturing capacity, and unified command structure. Together, we might survive what's coming." "And if we refuse?" His expression grew cold. "Then humanity will defend itself and you'll face the invasion alone. Your choice." The chamber erupted in heated debate. Some species demanded more proof of the alleged threat. Others argued for immediate alliance. A few suggested that humanity itself might be the real danger. Through it all, waited patiently. She had delivered humanity's message. Now it was time to see if the galaxy was ready to accept some uncomfortable truths about survival. Outside the chamber, Sergeant Major and his team maintained their positions with professional alertness. They had studied the station's layout during their approach. They knew where every security checkpoint was located, every potential escape route, every critical system that could be targeted if negotiations went badly. Humanity had come to Council Station hopping for alliance, but they were prepared for anything. The galaxy was about to learn what humans could do when they stopped pretending to miss. The debate in the Galactic Council chamber continued for 6 hours. Representatives argued, demanded proof, and questioned humanity's motives, while Ambassador waited with the patience of a species that had learned to think in geological time scales. Finally, High Chancellor called for order. "Ambassador, the Council requires additional evidence of this alleged threat before considering any alliance." Nodded to Doctor, who activated a secure communication channel. "Admiral Hayes, please proceed with the demonstration." "Demonstration?" General demanded. "You wanted proof," replied. "We're about to show you exactly what's heading for the galaxy." The main display in the chamber switched to an external view of Council Station. The massive structure orbited a neutron star, its position chosen specifically because the stellar radiation would mask any approach by hostile forces. It was, theoretically, the most secure location in known space. "Long-range sensors are detecting multiple contacts," announced Station Commander OK over the intercom. "Unknown vessels approaching from Vector 77 Mark IV, configuration unknown." The assembled representatives watched in growing alarm as dark shapes materialized on the display. The ships were unlike anything in Galactic Council databases. Angular, aggressive designs covered in weapon ports and sensor arrays. Even at long range, their hostile intent was obvious. 36 vessels and closing," Commander OK reported, attempting to establish communication. The response came as a burst of directed energy that overloaded Council Station's communication array. It wasn't an attempt to communicate. It was a declaration of war. "Battle stations," roared, "deploy the defense fleet." But the Galactic Council's defense fleet was designed for policing actions and ceremonial displays. 6 light cruisers, and a handful of patrol boats against 3 dozen unknown warships that clearly them. Ambassador, High Chancellor N's form flickered with fear. Are these the invaders you warned us about? A scouting force, replied calmly. The main fleet won't arrive for another 18 months, but this should give you a clear idea of what we're facing. The enemy vessels opened fire with weapons that tore through space like cosmic lightning. The first Galactic Council cruiser exploded within seconds, its shields overwhelmed by concentrated plasma fire. The second tried to retreat, but was caught by a tracking beam that dissected it like a surgical instrument. They're jamming our communications, Commander OK reported. We can't call for reinforcements. You don't have reinforcements, pointed out. This is your entire defense fleet. Panic spread through the chamber as the representatives realized they were watching their military forces being systematically destroyed. The alien invaders moved with the precision of a species that had perfected warfare over. What do we do? Counselor asked desperately. Activated her communication device. Admiral Hayes, Council Station requires immediate assistance. The response came from Admiral Hayes aboard the human command ship Retribution, hidden in the asteroid field beyond the neutron star. Understood, Ambassador. Initiating Operation Longbow. What is Operation Longbow? Demanded General. A demonstration of why humans don't miss, replied. The first sign of human intervention was subtle. One of the alien warships simply stopped moving. No explosion, no dramatic destruction. It just went dead in space, drifting silently among its companions. What happened to that ship? Doctor asked, studying her sensor readings. Single kinetic penetrator through the main reactor, Doctor explained. Fired from approximately 50,000 kilometers away. 50,000 kilometers? That's impossible with kinetic weapons. Only if you think humans use normal kinetic weapons. A second alien ship went dark. Then a third. The invaders finally realized they were under attack and began evasive maneuvers, but it was too late. Human ships emerged from concealment throughout the system, their positions chosen to create overlapping fields of fire. The human vessels were smaller than the alien warships, but they moved with predatory grace. Instead of engaging in direct energy weapon exchanges, they used the system's asteroids and debris fields as cover, appearing just long enough to fire precisely targeted shots before disappearing again. How many ships do you have out there? Admiral asked. Enough, replied. Every asteroid in this system has been hollowed out and converted into a weapons platform. Every piece of space debris larger than a shuttle has been equipped with sensors and communication relays. We've been preparing this ambush for 3 months. The alien fleet tried to adapt, but humans had been hunting in 3 dimensions for thousands of years. Every evasive maneuver was anticipated. Every attempt to form defensive formations was countered by attacks from unexpected angles. They're not just good shots, General observed with growing respect. They're tactical geniuses. We've had a lot of practice fighting opponents with superior technology, explained. When you can't match firepower, you have to be smarter. When you can't tank damage, you have to avoid getting hit. When you can't rely on shields, you learn to shoot first. The battle was over within 20 minutes. 36 alien warships had been reduced to drifting hulks or expanding debris clouds. Not a single human vessel had been destroyed, though several showed evidence of glancing hits. Impossible, General muttered. Primitive kinetic weapons cannot defeat advanced energy shields. Doctor activated a tactical display showing the engagement. Our weapons aren't primitive, General. They're specialized. While you were developing better shields, we were developing better ways to penetrate them. The display showed human projectiles threading through space at incredible velocities. But these weren't simple metal slugs. They were guided munitions with their own sensor packages and maneuvering systems. Adaptive kinetic penetrators, Doctor explained. They analyze shield frequencies in flight and adjust their approach accordingly. They can change course mid-trajectory to exploit weaknesses, and they're fired by soldiers who learn to hit moving targets before they learn to walk. High Chancellor N's form had stabilized, but his voice carried new respect. How long have you been planning this demonstration? Since we first detected signs of the invasion fleet, replied. We needed to convince you that humanity could be trusted as an ally. Sometimes the only way to prove you can protect someone is to actually do it. Admiral stood slowly. Ambassador, the Defense Fleet formally requests immediate alliance with the Terran Defense Force. As does the Hydrazoan Collective, added Counselor. One by one, the representatives of the Galactic Council voiced their agreement. The vote was unanimous. Humanity would be granted full membership in the Galactic Council with equal status and voting rights. But wasn't finished. There's one more thing the Council needs to understand, she said. The fleet you just witnessed being destroyed, it wasn't the invaders. Shocked silence filled the chamber. Those were human ships, continued. Volunteers from our outer colonies, equipped with captured alien technology and programmed to simulate invasion tactics. The real alien fleet is still 18 months away. General's massive form seemed to shrink. You staged the entire battle. We needed you to understand what you'll be facing. The real invaders will be faster, stronger, and more numerous than what you just saw. They'll also be expecting the kind of resistance you just witnessed. Doctor activated another display showing deep space sensor data. The actual invasion fleet consists of over 3,000 vessels. They're not scouts or raiders. They're conquerors, and they've been observing our communications for months. Then they know about human capabilities, High Chancellor asked. They know about the capabilities we've shown you, replied. They don't know about the ones we've kept hidden. She gestured to Sergeant Major, who stepped forward and placed a new device on the podium. The holographic display that materialized showed star systems throughout human space, but the installations visible now dwarfed anything the Council had seen before. Massive orbital fortresses surrounded every inhabited world. Asteroid fields had been converted into weapons platforms that could destroy entire fleets. Hidden shipyards produced vessels that made the ships at Council Station look like toys. This is humanity at full military mobilization, announced. Every resource, every citizen, every world focused on a single goal, survival. We've been preparing for this war since we first left our. How, Counselor asked weakly. Because we learned early that the universe is a dangerous place, replied. Every species we've encountered has been either predator or prey. We decided long ago that humanity would never be prey. The final display showed human fleets massing at the galaxy's edge. Thousands of ships, each one designed specifically for warfare against technologically superior opponents. The vessels bristled with weapons the Galactic Council had never imagined. When the invasion comes, said, the aliens will expect to face the same confused, primitive humans they've been observing. Instead, they'll encounter a species that has spent its entire existence learning to kill things that are bigger, stronger, and better armed. She turned to address the assembled representatives directly. The Galactic Council can choose to fight alongside humanity as equals, or you can hide behind your shields and hope the invaders ignore you after they've destroyed us. But understand this, if we fall, you fall with us. If we win, it will be because every species in this galaxy chose to stand together. High Chancellor N was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of history. Ambassador, what does humanity need from the Galactic Council? Everything you've got, replied. Ships, weapons, soldiers, scientists, engineers, and most importantly, the willingness to do whatever it takes to survive. You'll have it. As the session concluded and representatives hurried away to contact there, stood alone with her escort team. Sergeant Major approached with a quiet question. Ma'am, do you think they'll really be ready when the invasion comes? Looked out at the stars through the chamber's viewport. Somewhere out there, the real alien fleet was approaching, confident in their superiority and certain of their victory. They had observed humanity for years and concluded that these primitive apes posed no real threat. They'll be ready, she said finally, and so will we. 6 months later, when the first alien scouts entered the galaxy and found a unified defense force waiting for them, they would discover that humans had one more advantage the invaders hadn't counted on. Humans didn't just fight to win, they fought to survive. And when humanity's survival was at stake, the galaxy would learn that there was no such thing as missing by accident. The real war was about to begin.